life is never going to stop challenging you and presenting you with hard decisions or moments where you have to dig deep for answers or to overcome things or fight through things. Life will go on, and however we want it to be presented and however we want to grasp it and run with it, that's up to us.
What's up, fam? Today's guest is Jake Plummer, also known as Jake the Snake. He's someone I grew up watching in his heyday in the NFL. Really stoked to have him on the show. He played QB in the NFL for 10 years with both the Arizona Cardinals and Denver Broncos. I was surprised when he shared one of his favorite memories from his football career wasn't actually in the NFL, but at Arizona State when he took his team from really dismal records his first few years all the way to a national title game his senior year, which propelled him into stardom, and he became a high draft pick because of that. Jake is now an entrepreneur with multiple ventures, most notably UMBO, a functional mushroom supplement company. He was kind enough to give the listeners of this podcast a 15% discount. Go to umbo.com and use code BEYOND15 at checkout for 15% off. This conversation is a powerful one. We talk football, we talk the power and dangers of plant medicines, including cannabis and other sacred plant medicines like ayahuasca and mushrooms and peyote, and how they have played a pivotal role in both of our lives and the experiences we've had with them. I hope you all enjoy this very real and raw episode with my good friend, Jake the Snake Plummer. Jake, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm good, Joe. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I should say how are you being? How's your being right now? How are you feeling in your body?
Yeah, it's interesting. The awareness is there, so I can, when I'm being present, it feels real good. When I'm not, there's like disconnect. So I'm being good today. I'm being in it and enjoying the moment, and know that as I progress, what comes next is what's right for me and what's supposed to come next.
Yeah. I'm stoked to drop in with you, man. I remember as a youngster just starting out playing the game of football. It was like right during the prime of your career. I remember Jake the Snake as you went by and playing with the Broncos and finding a lot of success in the league, and now kind of embodying this mountain man and this rediscovery of self. And I'm really, really excited to dive into that, because the intention of this show is to really share, what an intense experience it is to transition from such an identity as an elite athlete, and how it has the potential to really propel us on this journey of discovering ourselves. And I know I've been on my journey of self-discovery, really questioning, the bigger questions of who am I, and really deeply excavating these parts of myself, and the journey continues, and it's really an infinite journey. And I know you're on that path as well, and we're going to dive into it. But I'd love to start with your career, and I'd love to paint the picture of kind of one of your pinnacle moments. Something where you were on top of the mountain, so to speak. One of these moments that as a football player you dream about, you look forward to, you put all this hard work into accomplishing. What is that moment for you? Take us there and tell us the story of kind of what it felt like to embody that moment.
Yeah, that's a great question. And immediately I know where I'm going to go with that answer. But just to preface, tapping into that mountain man, thing. I mean, my hair's long and it might be cut in a month or two, who knows? But, I grew up in the mountains. I was introduced to the Sawtooth Mountains from my dad and my mom. Spent a couple of years of my early formative 4, 5, 6-year-old life playing on a creek in the trees, just bopping around, walking across creeks, not getting my feet wet, and enjoying nature. So it's been a large part of my being for a long time. And I've navigated away from that at times and realized like, whoa, okay, get back to that nature, get back to being in touch with that, because it really has helped guide me to right now. And, coming out of Boise, Idaho, the pinnacle moment for me, but pretty much my sports career was my senior year at ASU. And, I went there for a specific reason, because of Bruce Snyder and his confidence that he had in me to tell me in my living room in Boise on his recruiting visit that he felt like I was a integral key part to him building a national championship football team. And he was the only coach in the country that said that. There were other coaches that said a lot of nice things, but when he said that, I felt like that was an opportunity to go make an indelible mark on an institution that I didn't know much about. I'd never really seen in bowl games or on in the national title hunt. And I, felt, hey, let's give this a shot. And so what culminated was 3 tough years of some hard losses to our rivals down south, and a year where we went 3-8, and I doubted even playing football any longer because of the heart of some of the guys on that team that went 3-8, and some of them that went on to play in the NFL. Yet we were 3-8, and it just didn't jibe with me. But everything culminated into believing in that, what he told me. And he was a master kind of early on in Zen, coaching one at a time. And that was his take on be in the moment now. Like, the present moment now is all that matters. And so
he actually brought these Zen concepts into his coaching philosophy. Was it different language, or did you feel it at that time?
At that time, it didn't really resonate as Zen or Buddha-like, but it was like, when you think about one at a time, he broke it down to one season, one game, one quarter, one play, one practice, one 110 in sprints. How many you got today, coach? You got one.
Being present with every little thing, right? Not thinking about the future, past, which is a huge tool and asset. Like, you need to have that as an athlete, because you can go from play to play and have to really wipe it clean. And if you get stuck in your mind, you're never going to find success.
Totally. And you got to have it as a 18-year-old on an ASU campus, fresh away from home, trying to navigate school, study hall, finding food to eat, practice, watching film, and a social life and everything. And so, Bruce was really good. He brought in a lot of great coaches. I had Bobby Petrino as a quarterback coach, Hugh Jackson as my quarterback coach. So I got coached by some really fantastic coaches. And, the pinnacle moment, as you asked, was, that senior year where we started out and just beat Washington barely. We beat Nebraska at home. And now all of a sudden we're top 4 in the country, and we have a whole schedule to play. And I'm being thrown out there as a Heisman candidate. And it's like, wait a sec. I used to watch the Heisman and dream of like winning the Heisman. And now I'm a Heisman candidate. And I didn't think of myself like that. I thought of myself as like the leader of that team representing the 96 Sun Devils on that Heisman, pedestal there. So we ended up having a magical year, went undefeated, and unfortunately we didn't pull off the national championship. We lost to the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Rose Bowl, just barely. I mean, we just ran out of time to try to tie it to go to OT. But, that was really, another point in my life that, if you believe and the right people come into the fold, and you can be one of the tenets of Coach Schneider's was to care about your teammate and to know what to do. And, to one at a time, so caring about our teammates became part of my, what I always did. But now I realize the benefits of that, being able to have them by your side when you needed them, being able to pick them up when they needed it, them picking me up when I needed it. And that was really the pinnacle moment, being finishing third in the Heisman voting, getting to play in the in what was, a national championship game. If we went undefeated, we would have been the only undefeated team and outright national champs. Knowing that, man, I'm going to get drafted into the NFL. There's no way I'm not now, and be one step closer to my childhood dream to win a Super Bowl. But that season was magical. That team was full of amazing human beings and great coaches. And really, I was riding high in Arizona and Tempe at the time. Charles Barkley was at the Suns, and I was the Sun Devils, and the Cardinals were doo-doo. They were no good. So, I was one of the top celebrity personalities in that whole valley right at that time. And, it didn't come with some humbling experiences too, but it was definitely the pinnacle for me of a year that I'll never forget.
Oh man, that's freaking awesome. So you went from 3-8 your junior year to undefeated your senior year.
3-8 sophomore year.
3-8 sophomore year. So 2-year turnaround to
6 and
playing
5.
in the national championship game.
Yeah, 6-5 junior year, and we lost like 4 games by a total of 9 points that year. So
It
we
was a
knew
good
we had
team.
a
Yeah.
team and we had the leadership. And one thing that was cool that Coach Schneider did is he allowed us, as we formed a player council. And so from every position, there was a senior on that in that position group, the tight ends, the receivers, the D linemen, the DBs. So one person would represent that group and we would meet together. And it was like, hey, what's going on? So and so's not getting to class. Do something about it. Don't let coach have to send his DB coach or our recruiting coordinator or somebody out to go wake homeboy up and get him to class. Like, let's you live by him, pick him up, take him to class, drop him off at the middle of campus. Then he has no choice. And so we took
Mhm.
care of a lot of problems that way. Issues with girlfriends or oh man, I got in this scuffle. Like we would handle that as a team and not take it to our coaches. And so that was really that junior year we formed that, and that senior year we handled a lot of stuff just amongst ourselves without the coaches being involved. And I think that really gave us that confidence we needed when things were challenging during that '96 season. We just banded together, and the work we put in that summer, ending the season prior with a loss to U of A at home, and we had the game in our hand too. It was almost too many people thought it was over, but we lost, and we ended up not going to a bowl game again during Christmas break. So it was yeah, there was a lot of things that led up to that magical run we had in '96. And we're still remembered as one of the best teams in ASU history, even though we didn't win the Rose Bowl. And in '87 they did win the Rose Bowl, but no one really talks about that team as much.
Mm.
And it culminated in a lot of amazing things. I got into the College Football Hall of Fame. I feel still as a representative of that team and those coaches, not me as an individual. And then, my name's up on that stadium. I go in that stadium and look up and there's my name. And it's like, wait a second. I used to play and look up at the names on that up there on the building. And now I'm one of them. And like, I went and definitely left an indelible mark and an impression. And, I'm grateful for that opportunity that Bruce gave me as an 18-year-old to boost my confidence and give me the ability to come down and show people what I could do, but also to be open to receive coaching and the care and love that everybody gave me.
Beautiful. Talk a little bit about being an 18-year-old kid with that amount of notoriety. I know it's different back then than it would be now, which is a whole different story. But for you experiencing it back then, what was it like with all of that energy? I'm sure there was some sort of ego inflation. How did you navigate that? How did you stay grounded? Like, were you present with it? What was the experience like holding all of that attention while showing up and playing the game? Because I mean, we see all the time with these kids and the amount of just eyeballs on them and how much pressure's put on them, and some handle it better than others. How was that experience for you? You said there's some
Yeah,
humbling experiences. I'd like to get into some of those as well.
it was very it was challenging at times, but thankfully I was really, my mom and my family raised me to, obviously stay grounded, treat people with respect, never feel like I was any bigger than anybody else just because of maybe what I did or who I was. So I was always remembering treating people right, treating people with respect, treating people how you would like to be treated. It's the golden rule, right? You want to be treated with respect, then respect people. And I also I wasn't real crazy. In high school, I was focused on sports. I wasn't chasing women and partying on the weekends. I mean, a little bit my senior year after football, we had some fun for a while until, I called a team meeting with the basketball team. I was like, dude, you guys, we could win state, but we got to stop partying every weekend. We got to stop doing this. And then let's party like crazy after we win state. Well, we lost in the state championship game, but it was like, I really wasn't out, I wasn't, distracted by those things, even though I may have wanted them or felt like that'd be great to be able to go to a bar and pick up chicks and go home. But it wasn't what motivated me. And so I stayed focused onto the football side of things. And there were numerous times, people would get, women would come up in a bar to my buddy and be like, I heard that Jake's here. I really want to meet him. And I'd say, well, that's me. And they'd look at me and they go, you're not Jake. And I'm like, yes, I am. Like I just
That's a
very
funny thing about football players too, right? Like we have our helmets on, our pads on, so we're not like basketball or baseball where it's so easily recognizable, especially for someone of like
sure.
your notoriety. They know who you are. They don't recognize you. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, my freshman year was intense. I trying to hit study hall, maintain my grades, and then got thrown into the starting lineup halfway through the season. It was amazing. Also, I leaned a lot on my coaches. I had some really good coaches, and I had some really great teammates that were always there for me, that would listen and help me, and they weren't out. My backup, Jason Verdugo, who came in same time as me, we battled it out for the backup position to be number 2 going into the season, and I got it. He rode with me for 3 years, and I started every single game and never got hurt. So he didn't get many opportunities, but we made an agreement to just be the best friends we could be and back each other up no matter what. And so a lot of what I had was going through or needed help with, he was always there for me. And, he's one of my best friends for life because, that doesn't happen today. He would have transferred to USC or Oregon or something and left me, but he was there for me. So I had a lot of great people around me. My mom, my family always helped keep me really grounded. My brothers were always, if I wasn't acting right, they'd call me out. Like, hey, man, you just walked by those 5 kids that have been sitting there for 10 minutes yelling at you to get an autograph. Like, don't you think you should do that? I'm like, well, I want to go home and see you guys. But, the balance was tough. But I realized with that, with the notoriety and with the game and how people would see me as a figure or a celebrity, that those 20, 30 seconds or minute that I would go sign autographs would change the course of some young kid's life to realize like, oh man, celebrities and athletes can be nice. Maybe I can be nice too. So it was a gift. It wasn't always perfect, but I tried the best I could to give back what little I could when I had the opportunity. So it was there was definitely a lot going on, but it was a fun journey those 4 years at ASU.
Mm. So finding a lot of success your senior year, going to the national championship, knowing you're going to get drafted and going into that journey and kind of taking this next step into the NFL, propelling you into becoming a high draft pick and then getting drafted, and then all of a sudden having the weight of a professional team, more of a business, holding the weight of, and not just an organization, but entire city and hometown too, getting drafted to the Cardinals. Talk about that experience and how it shifted from this love for the game, playing college ball, playing with my boys, just wanting to, win, into the business side of it, and that adjustment, and kind of if it took a while or how you adjusted into that new role.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much entered all my situations pretty naive with real no like game plan set out. Like, I'm going to come in and be the quarterback, and I'm going to say these things, and I'm going to talk to my guys this way. And I just did it what felt right, what felt natural, what I felt was my true desires, and I would present it and hope that the guys on the team felt the same way, and most times they did. So, going into that, I'll give you an example. Going into that senior year, or even I'll go back further if that's okay, and then I'll answer, the pro question. But my freshman year, we lost to Cal down there, and Cal was horrible. And I was like, this isn't right. And I was starting at the time as a freshman, and guys were on the plane ride home playing cards and laughing like it didn't mean anything. And I stood up and I was like, Coach, it was about to end the meeting. He's like, anybody else got anything to say? And I stood up and was like, I have something to say, Coach. We're better than this. And these seniors want to go to a bowl game. And I think if we pick it up, we can take them there because they deserve it. And man, those seniors love me to this day. They love me. And I didn't have anybody coach me to do that. I just felt like, what are we doing here? If we're going to be here, let's do the best we can. And I felt like guys weren't. So that was always my drive, was to do the best I can, do the most I could, and hopefully have people rise up with me. Before my senior year, I called the team meeting only, players meeting, no coaches. And I brought in a rose, and I said, right before the summer break, when everybody was about to leave, I said, hey, if you want this, we should all stay here. I'm staying here. Who's with me? Stand up if you're going to stay here so we can go win the Rose Bowl. And that whole room stood up. And so I didn't have anybody coach me to do that. No one said, hey, go do this. It was just like, this is what I want. I got this room full of guys. Let's see if we can pull this off.
I just want to highlight that real quick, because like my body is vibrating, and as an athlete, knowing there's that type of leadership on a team, especially from a position like quarterback, that changes the game and the momentum of an entire team. And it makes me think back on my career, and there was these moments, I had opportunities to step up in that way, and I didn't. I played small, and I regret it big time. And a big part of my healing journey has really been reconciling that. And so there's been these moments in my career where it's like the team is together, and it's almost like the universe like creates this pause, and there's this opening and stillness and silence, and it's almost like the universe is calling you to fill that space with inspiration, with leadership. And I had a few moments I can remember where like that happened to me. And I felt this fear and this constriction around my heart and my throat. And it was like, and probably past wounding where I didn't want to be judged, or I didn't want to say the wrong thing, or I just had this fear of being seen and stepping up as a leader. And so I really want to acknowledge the intuitive, just strength of leadership to show up. And that I just want to acknowledge that so much, because I've been on a bunch of teams, as I know you have, and that is a difference maker, is somebody from the team that knows what they want. And, it's, as I've been done playing and I've really like focused on leadership and really understanding why I struggled to step up as a leader, is because I had this false idea of what leadership was. I thought I had to have it all together. Thought I had to be perfect. And what real leadership is reminding everybody of where you're headed, of what your goals are. It's not saying, hey, you're doing it wrong. It's, hey, is that going to get us to where we want to go? And there's the subtle differences to that. And for you to step up like that, man, I wish I was playing with you, man. That's just fucking awesome.
It was. It ended up like I had an old lineman, one of my best buds, that reminded me of that story with the rose, and I had forgotten it. I didn't register to me, but to him, it was like a pinnacle moment in his career, in his life. Like he remembers that moment, that meeting, and standing up and saying, "Hell yeah, let's do this." And so, I never had these. I didn't have this guru quarterback coach from the time I was 12 teaching me how to be a quarterback. I was just one of the guys. I'd do whatever I could. I could help you out if I could help do this. I just wanted to win. I just wanted to compete and put forth my best effort. And as more guys started buying into that, and we added some guys to that team, things shifted huge. They had a huge monumental shift that summer of us working hard for what we were there to do, was win a national title. And so, all that being said, before I got into the league, I talked about humbling experiences. We were at a club having a bachelor party for one of my linemen, and things were in the club. We're dancing, having fun, and there were a lot of my former teammates there, or teammates at the time, and some things went down on the dance floor. Some girls felt very uncomfortable, and at the time, I used to wear a white ASU hat backwards with a Sparky. I said, me and Barkley in that town were the two most well-known athletes in the town. And so when everything came around, the blame was put on me for what happened that night. So it was really, really hard to be like high as I could be, riding this like pedestal of like, wow. And then to be just boom, chopped down with accusations of things that I did not do.
And what were the accusations? What happened that night?
Just some things were done. These girls had been felt like they were sexually harassed by some people on the dance floor. It was a fun night. There was dancing. There was a lot of interaction. But when the thing came down to it, and who they pointed their, hey, he's the one who did it, because I was there, but I did not do what they were accusing me of doing. It was really hard. It was very, very hard. I stopped going to class. I felt like everybody was out to get me now that I'm ready to almost achieve my dream. And it was a really humbling experience, and it taught me a very valuable lesson. I was grateful that at the time, Lee Steinberg was in the height of his being an agent. He was pursuing me to represent me. And I chose to go with him, and everything was going along just fine. And we had come to an agreement to keep this, not out of the limelight, but just to make it go away. And I didn't want to do that. I was like, no, I want to go to court, Lee. I want to fight this. And he's like, he told me, well, Jake, do you want to miss week 9 versus Minnesota to have your court date? And I thought about it. I was like, what do you mean, Lee? He's like, you're going to be starting by the middle of the season. I was like, what? I'm not been drafted yet. He's like, you're good. I just had been drafted by the car. He's like, you're going to be the starter. So if you want to go to court and fight this and miss possibly practice and the game and have this come all back up, then let's do it. But I suggest you just make it go away. So we made it go away. Word came out. So when my first, my first day at camp, one of the craziest, most like, you want to talk about getting humbled to be squished down to the smallest piece of human being you could possibly imagine. The cameras were all out as my first public appearance since word had broken about this nightclub experience and what had happened and transpired. And the DA had brought it back out into public because he was up for re-election and they were using me. It was really I learned a lot about life, really. I go to take my first snap under center with Mike Devlin, who's a dear friend, and he was a scrappy, nasty little O-lineman center. And I go in and I put my hands under his crotch to take the snap. And what does he do? He's like, hey, what are you doing? Don't be filling me up like that. Like, and every camera in the state was on me. I mean, I shrunk down so small. I wanted to fight him so bad. I was just like, how could you do this to me? But I realized, hey, this is what it is. This is how I grow. This is how I get through this. I look back on it and laugh. It was a challenging time, but, as things progressed, and I'm now not the face of this franchise yet, but I have a lot of people watching because ASU, Sun Devils, boom, now I'm a Cardinal. This is a franchise that hasn't done anything in the Valley for years, and they got some good players. And I ended up being third string, and then through the season, halfway through, Kent Graham, the starter, got hurt. Stoney Case started against Philly. He was not performing well in the first half, and they felt like I was ready. And it was, I think, game 7 or game 8. They threw me in the second half, ball on the 2-yard line in Vet Stadium going the other way. I got in the huddle and looked around at the guys and was like, let's take this motherfucker 98 yards. Who's with me? And they all perked up and they're like, yeah, let's go, And I look over at Larry Centers and he's looking at me like this. And I thought he had something in his eye. I'm like, what's up, Larry? He's like, I had the tiger, baby. I had the tiger. So we took it 98 and scored, and from that point, those guys were like, this is our dude. Like, we're going to ride with him. And I realized right then, starting, and then 98 was a big year where we went to the playoffs for the first time in 15 years, another pinnacle moment in my career. And we won the first playoff game for the Arizona Cardinals in 50 years, 5-0. My dad was born the last time they won a playoff game. We beat Dallas down there. And so that was another huge pinnacle moment. But I learned right away the business as they signed me to a new contract. They cut Larry Centers, Lomas Brown, Jameer Miller, 3 stalwarts, foundational leaders, like all pro caliber players. They just let them go. And free agency, see you later. And I realized the business of this was like, wait a second, I'm here. We did what we did because of them. You're giving me this money. Now you're letting them go and replacing them with, younger, less experienced and not as talented parts. Like, wait a sec. And we struggled, we had a few tough years, but I realized right away how important it was to, out and about at a club, keep your hands in your pockets and hang out and be real careful as who you associate with and make sure to carry yourself in a professional way because people are watching and a lot of eyeballs were on me. And that experience coming out of ASU definitely was hard to go through. It cost me some money. But in the long run, as Lee said, it went away and I moved on and have had a great career in the NFL.
Man, your leadership is just blowing me away, man. I would have loved to play with you because there's nothing better than someone that just like a good teammate and someone that just loves playing ball. It's the best, especially at the quarterback position. So take me through, towards the end of your career, right? You find a lot of success in the NFL. You end up going to the Broncos. Take me towards the fast forwarding to when you started contemplating being done and what that was like. And, I think everybody has a different experience of that, especially where they're at and you being, the face of these franchises and holding a lot of weight and, being the quarterback. What was that process like finally coming to the end of your career, leading up to it, and then we'll get into what it was like actually, being done.
Yeah. Thank you for the nice words about, wanting to be your quarterback, because it would have been fun to play with you too. I
Yeah,
love
man.
guys that just were down and dirty and love the game, but like to have fun too on the side. I remember getting into the league and the Cardinals, Lomas Brown, Lomas was, I think he was at ninth year, my rookie year, maybe a 10-year veteran. And I remember looking at him and feeling so small and young and inexperienced and having no clue. And here was Lomas, who knew everything and knew everybody. And if you needed something, he could hook it up. And he knew this guy and that guy. And I thought, man, if I get 10 years, that's going to be good. I think I'm going to be good with 10 years if I can get that in this league. And so I'd already kind of looked at that as, I wasn't chasing a 15-year, 5 Super Bowl, career. I was just chasing one Super Bowl ring, and that was my dream. And as it progressed and the Cardinals didn't work out, that year in 98 was good, but 4 years after, we really struggled. But there's a stadium there now because of that 98 season, and the Super Bowl's there. And so we left an indelible mark on that franchise and definitely changed the course of that franchise's history by having that season in 98. Even though we didn't carry it on through my last 4 years with the Cardinals. But getting to the Broncos, it was really a breath of fresh air to go to an organization. And this is no knock on the Cardinals, but their history speaks for itself compared to the Broncos' history, where, Pat Bowlen had 300 victories in 30 years, and they averaged 10 victories a season. That was like a franchise that was speaking to me when I was a free agent of, hey, our chances for a Super Bowl go from 1 in 1,000 to, 1 in 200 or something. The odds are much better in an organization like that that's run, and their central focus is to do that. And so going to the Broncos again was it was scary, and I was nervous because I'm going to a new team with Rod Smith and Al Wilson and Tommy Nalen and these like all pro guys that I felt like I was on par with them, but they were at another echelon up as one of the elites of the NFL players. And I was joining them, and it was a lot of fun. I got there and just started working hard, man. Just what came in and took stock of how people were working out. And if we, were working out on a Thursday or on a Friday, because coach would always make us work on Friday, even in the off season, especially that guys wanted to leave and go to Vegas or go home or whatever. And they were half-assing it. And I'd start beating them all in the 110s or in our speed drills and start calling them out. Like, yo, you run a 4.40. I run 4.840, and I'm beating you in this. Are you giving me 100%? Man, come on, Snake, it's Friday. I'm like, so what? I want to win a Super Bowl. Do you? Then step it up. And that would force them to, just by me going as hard as I possibly could, because I only had one gear and it was 100%. Even in practice, like I was trying as hard as I could in practice. There was never like, okay, I'll drop back and throw the ball because it's practice. No, I had to go like it was real all the time. And that's how I got better. And that's how I raised the level of guys around me. So getting there and then having the guys gravitate towards that, the Rod Smith, like I said, I mentioned him, Al Wilson, these guys, like, they loved it. I came in with that attitude of, I'm not going to be the perfect, best, all pro number one quarterback in the league, but I'm going to work my ass off and count on you guys to do the same thing and see where we can take this. And it was well received. And, I had 4 great years there. And, not many people know, but that 9th year when we went to the AFC Championship game, we had a Super Bowl caliber team. It's too bad we didn't win that game. It wasn't our day, right? But I was planning to retire after that. I was planning on winning the Super Bowl, being the MVP, holding the trophy, and on that pedestal with the confetti coming down, say, "Hey, everybody, peace out. This has been fun, but I'm out of here," because my body was starting to feel it. 6'2", 180 pounds now. This is my body, but I was 6'2", 210 pounds, my ankles, my knees, my back. I was on anti-inflammatories. I was really like ramped up. Like if someone messed with me, it was like trigger. I was like caged animal ready to go. I was programmed to that that NFL, type, masculine badass, warrior. And I knew it was time to go. And it didn't happen. So I gave it one more year and ended up not working out. They started a youngster, later in the season, but those last little bit of that season was pretty special to kind of coast out with the ability to go to the game with no stress, hang out. They put beers out on the table on Saturday nights, for the coaches or a responsible vet that could have one and go to bed. And I'd have 3 or 4 with the linemen, and they were scowling at me like, "You suck, man." I'm like, "Hey, well, go talk to coach. I didn't bench myself." And I'm drinking beers and hanging out. They just were like, "God dang it, man, what are you doing?" But it gave me a way to coast out and appreciate the beauty of the game, to smell it, to get there early and like understand like time for closure. Let's make this happen. And so after that 10th year, it was time to move on.
I had a similar experience. My last year, I ended up getting benched for a younger guy, and that was when I realized I was on the sideline in my street clothes as an inactive player, and it was the first time I was not actually fired up about getting my starting job back. I was content. I was like, oh man, I must have lost the passion for this thing. And similarly, my body was breaking down, and it's crazy how fast it starts happening when you start noticing it, and how fast you age in the NFL. And it's interesting, even at a position like quarterback, which, not necessarily the same as like an offensive line, but you're working your body all the time. And to feel that, talk about, because when I was ready to walk away, there was a part of me that was like, okay, I'm done. And I'm really looking forward to the freedom from this thing. And I think we have similar energy of like, I love the game of football. I did it 100%, gave it everything I had. And as soon as I didn't have any more to give the game, it was time to walk away. And part of me was really excited about experiencing the freedom, because it sort of becomes this like self-created prison that you feel like it's the only thing that you know. And the roadmap to success is laid out. Every day you wake up and you know exactly how to be successful and show up. And it's really quite simple in that way. And, for me, when I was finally done, like a couple days, couple weeks after my final game and the finality hit, I just started crying. And it was just this deep grieving process that I hadn't really experienced before, because I felt like there was a void in my heart. And all these questions started coming up like, now what, and what's my purpose? What do I do with myself? And it was overwhelming and exciting. And it was just all these emotions that I just really didn't have the tools to make sense of. And it led me on a journey to really discover the deeper parts of myself. So talk about when you were actually done playing and what that process was like for you.
Yeah. Taking me back a few years here. When it dawned on me to be done was when I never could figure out how to be enough for not only the coaches, but the public, the media. I just felt like there was never enough. I was giving it my all. It was always, you watch those films, the games, like, hey, good job here. But if you would have stepped here, you could have created a bigger lane and stepped up to the next level, and we would have got that first down that would keep us number 1 in the league in offensive production. Like, we won the game, right? Isn't that the point? Yeah, but you could have been 25 of 30 with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. Well, of course, but wasn't the point to win, coach? Like, I didn't care about production. I wanted to win, whatever it took. And so when that happened, I started just feeling like, you're never good enough. I was never good enough, even though I was one of the best quarterbacks in the league and in the world, really. I like to say best in the world. It still felt like it wasn't enough. And so when I left the game, I was ready to go. People didn't believe I was ready. Mike traded me to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So my rights were now in Tampa's hands, and Gruden, was pursuing me hard. I really was just ready to go. Mentally, it was beating me up. Like I said, just having to answer the questions of, not ever being good enough. It was really hard when I was putting my heart and soul into it. And, so that whole thing went down with Tampa. They had my rights. They took money back, and I was like, good, take it. I paid way more than I ever thought I would. I don't want to be involved with this anymore. There was a small percentage of me, very minute, that wanted to play for Kubiak down in Houston, but it wasn't going to happen. My rights were in Tampa's hands. If I came back, I had to be a Buccaneer. And so I was done. And at the time I was I'd fallen in love and met a girl here local in Colorado who actually was a cheerleader. It's funny. She cheered for the Broncos, and I met her downtown out and about. And we ended up, being able to perform for a couple years on the field on Sundays together, which was really, really cool. And our lives have progressed to now having a family and being in a partnership for life, really. And so a lot of good came out of that. But at the moment, I was wanting to do other things. I wanted to, go to the weddings that somehow my family would always plan in August. And I'm like, you guys, I'm busy in August. I can't come to your wedding. Can you do it in early July or June? So I missed out on some things, and family was always really important to me. I really wanted to travel. And so I met, my partner, who we weren't married yet, but we were traveling and doing a lot of fun things. I moved out of Colorado and moved up to North Idaho, Sandpoint, Idaho, to, a small little town, 50 miles from the Canadian border. I just wanted some anonymity. I just wanted to be able to go out in public and not have, to sign autographs or take pictures or, be confronted in the line at the grocery store. I really just wanted some peace of mind and some time to myself. And so we moved out into the woods in Sandpoint and, was able to just kind of let loose, play a lot of handball, do a lot of yoga, travel around the world with my wife. I got married as soon as I retired because, I wanted to have kids now that football was out of the way. And I had some tough moments, I would say. But at the time I was using the medicine, the THC and marijuana was a definite outlet for me, for creativity, for relaxation, for letting go of any ghostly thoughts of like, God, did I retire too soon? Or maybe, what am I? But then I started, realizing, yeah, I did it right. It really hit me hard when Junior Seau took his life. And the talks then of all these other players with the thought of, what can happen to your brain and the damage we're choosing to do to ourselves to pursue the money, but some pursue that pedestal, and their ego, I think, is what's driving them. And when he took his life, and I'd been around Junior a few times and I played against him, and he was so full of life, and he took his life, it really made me think like, oh my God, like, should I have played this long? Like, what, this is interesting thoughts to have. Like, oh my goodness, like I loved this game, but am I going to have to face these things? Is this going to be my future? And I had couple surgeries on my hips and the rehab from that, and just like questioning, like, what did I do this for? It set me up financially to be free, but it didn't teach me a whole lot of other things in life that were tangible, right? I mean, obviously it teaches you mental toughness and leadership and teamwork and all those good qualities. But it wasn't like I could go build a house from the skills I learned playing football, or go pursue to be a chemist, or go into a lab and start extracting, molecules out of hemp. I didn't have that. I had football. So I coached a little bit. That helped bring the love of the game back, coaching at Sandpoint High School. Seeing the kids on the sideline that will never see the field, but they're buckled and they're ready and they're like, yeah. And like, it made me realize, like, football still is good. There's so much good in it. And, yeah, it was definitely not an easy transition, but having my wife and being able to see my family and play handball with my brother and go to handball tournaments, have that outlet for the competition and camaraderie was really big. There were some deep moments there when Junior took his life, and I had to start thinking not only about myself, but even like teammates and people I knew in the game, like going through it also. And
yeah, it's a very real fear, because that's one thing. Like I think it was my 5th or 6th year in the league. I think 2015, 2016, when that movie Concussion came out.
Yeah.
And I still haven't seen it. And I think a couple guys that saw it during the season when it came out, it definitely affected the way they played and the way they showed up on the field. And I knew that if I would have watched it, it would have had an effect on me. So I actually didn't watch it. But all of the research that was coming out, I think it was like 97% of the hundreds of brains they studied of former NFL players had some type of brain trauma or CTE. That's scary as fuck. And that really affected me as well. And it was probably one of the layers of the catalyst that kind of eventually, helped me decide to walk away. And as I've reflected on it, it's actually been, a gift, because that fear of brain trauma when you're kind of starting to get up there in your 40s, 50s, 60s, it affects your consciousness. It affects the literal lens in which you view reality. And if it can affect you to a point where you take your own life, like, what is that experience of life actually like? And it comes with a lot of fear, because how do you know you're going crazy? And the only way you can really know is the reflection of the people around you.
Mm.
And, for me, it was one of the reasons I started really being proactive about my brain health. And I actively started researching, like, how can I take care of my brain and not just wait for myself to go crazy? Because I know I've hit my head plenty of times and I've had plenty of concussions. I'm sure you have too. And that's what led me into really learning more about meditation, right? And how meditation can create new neural pathways, and the power of learning and novel experiences, and how all of these things create new neural pathways, and the importance of nutrition and inflammation on the body, and the foods that I feed myself have a massive effect on my brain and my awareness. And then that led me into looking at studies with mushrooms and psychedelic therapies, where they have fMRI scans of these brains, not on mushrooms and on mushrooms, and they're just lit up like a Christmas tree. And knowing that the new neural pathways and the new science around neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, because we were told when we were younger, like, you lose a brain cell, you're fucked. And so I'm like, oh, well, shit, like, we're way fucked then.
Stop
And then
sniffing that marker.
and understanding the neurogenesis and neuroplasticity and all of these things to be proactive actually propelled me onto a deeper spiritual path. Because as I started doing these things to take care of my brain health, it started expanding my awareness, and it started allowing me to access deeper parts of myself and ask these deeper questions and have these deeper discoveries and deeper truths, and the ability to let go of all of these things that I was told I needed to be to have success, to be approved of, to be validated of, to receive love. And being able to let go of all this stuff. And like I said, when I first walked away, I had this void in my heart, and I was grieving the loss of this thing that had provided so much and I built so much of my identity on. And it's like, who am I without this? And I knew that I needed to fill that thing, not with external things, because I had achieved everything I had set out to. I'd made plenty of money, more money than I ever knew what to do with. I became a starter in the NFL, played 8 years, objectively just like a really successful career. And there was still a piece of me that was like, what is life for? What am I here for? What is the deeper purpose? And it led me on this journey. And so going into that, I know you've worked with these medicines, like you said, cannabis, and I'd love to get more into the journey of mushrooms. And I actually want to talk a little bit about my relationship with cannabis. And I'm curious, because you said you used cannabis, and I've had a really deep relationship with cannabis, and I'm excited to explore this with you because, in my career, I smoked a lot of weed and a lot of cannabis, and it was definitely from a place of escaping all of the pressure and the anxiety and the having to prove myself constantly, never feeling good enough, and the physical pain in my body. And I'm really grateful, because it really helped me towards the latter parts of my career to really show up, and it helped support me. And going into my transition and being done playing, and even up till now, current day, like, I just still dance with this relationship with cannabis, and it's such a subtle line to walk, where I'm using it in an expansive, intentional, productive way. And then I find myself, I'll start overusing, and I'll find myself being high more than I'm sober. And I start just smoking unconsciously. And even to this day, like, super aware, and I have all these tools. It's something that I have such a strong relationship with. And there's this part of me that judges myself for not being able to use it. It's like, should I not smoke cannabis at all? And it's like, no, because it's a powerful tool, and there's all these medicinal qualities. And I'd love for you just to speak to your relationship with cannabis as somebody that's been so connected with it, and how you navigate that relationship.
Yeah, wow. You have a good relationship with it seems, and I relate in a lot of ways to what you're saying. I was, even though born and raised in Idaho, I was around cannabis growing up. I had a family that was, you would say, there were articles written with my hippie family. We were hippies, but we were just kind of fun-loving, free-willing people that embodied a community kind of essence and helping people out. And so I was not persuaded or indoctrinated into the just say no dare movement that happened in the Reagan era. When my mom was pissed off when I came home from school with a bag for dare. She's like, "You went to that rally?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, Mom, you signed the waiver." I didn't tell her what it was for, but she signed the field trip waiver, and she was like, "Oh," because she wasn't going to let me go. She was so against that. And reason being is we just had some family members that had used cannabis for some issues for health, and also just used it for the purpose of what it did for me through really later on in my career when it became something that I would go to. I was so scared to get a positive test. I was so scared to get popped and let my team down that I stayed away from it. College was my first time ever smoking some weed or marijuana with one of my teammates. But then I would, next week, oh, so-and-so can't play this week and he's going to be kicked off the team because he got a positive test. I'm like, oh God, like I can't let that derail my path. So I stayed away from it until, in the league, I realized, the trip testing protocol and when it would happen and knew like, all right, take a break for a month and a half, wait to get that little thing in your locker and go take a piss. And now we're good to go.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, I just want to paint the picture. And this is, if players are failing for cannabis in the league, it's because they haven't really figured it out. But you can be tested. There's two types of tests in the NFL. There's the PED test, which is the performance enhancing drug test. And then there's the street drug test. The street drug test actually only happens once a year. It's in the springtime. And all the players know. So like 30 days before you show up for OTAs, you just stop smoking, drink a lot of water, kind of cleanse it. As soon as you get tested, you pass, you can start lighting up again. And so these guys that have consistent, things, it's got to kind of figure out how the system works. I just wanted to share that because I did the same thing. As soon as I figured that out, like 3 or 4 years in, it's like I was smoking regularly.
Yeah, I mean it was actually a very well timed off season to figure that out because I'm going home to Boise, Idaho for a Toots and the Maytals concert. Toots is one of the OG like reggae artists, coined the term "do the reggae." Reggae was one of his terms that he came up with. So like a legend in that genre of music that I loved. And I'm coming to practice on Friday or, for our, I don't think we're in mini camp. We just started. And I'm like, man, I got to go to Boise. And I walk in and a couple of my buddies are smiling, looking at me. I'm like, what's up with them? What'd they do? And I got to my locker and there's the little tag. It was like, perfect timing. Went and took my pee, got on a plane, went home, went to Toots in the right frame of mind and had a great time. And, my relationship with it during the season was much like you mentioned, Joe, it was a release for me. It was a chance to like get done with the game, win or lose, my performance, however it went. I knew I was going to have to live that, not only just recount it throughout the night in my brain when I would try to go to bed of like, God, what I could have done this, that, or the other. And I knew I'd have to go watch the film again, get the grades, get chewed out sometimes by the coaches. It was a chance for me to just drop in with my family or friends that were visiting or teammates that were over to hang out and celebrate a win or, talk through a loss and let it go and have some fun that night. So for me, it became very therapeutic to get home, have a toke, and then feel my shoulders just go like, oh, I would feel like literally like someone took a massive weighted vest off of me and rubbed their hands down my back. And it was like, oh, yeah.
I feel that. Yeah.
Hey, Mom, how's it going? And I would just forget about it because I had to in order to be in that moment. I mean, my family would come to town on Friday and, I wasn't sitting down relaxing with them. I'm still studying. I'm going through it. I'm like preparing for the game. And so that moment to have after the game with them was so precious for me that cannabis became a way to drop in and laugh and dance and have fun and forget about it because I knew I was going to have to relive it the next day and what damage that does to us to carry it through the night and into the morning and over to that meeting. It was my chance to let it go. And that was it. That was my use during the season. On Monday nights, maybe never really on Tuesday night because that's when the game plan would come in on the fax machine and it was time to start studying and getting ready for the preparation for the week. So I would have a couple nights there where I might use cannabis and, go out to dinner, go to a concert, go do something to get my mind off of the game for just that little bit of time I could. And that was my medicine. That's what I did. Meanwhile, I was still drinking a lot of beer, which, if I could go back, I would have probably reassessed how much I was consuming at certain times, especially after a game when your body's in full recovery mode and you're feeding it.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? We're like the time that we're supposed to take the most care of our body, we're like, oh, now I get to booze because it's the end of the game and end of the hard week.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just totally. But we made it through. We're all
we didn't know any better.
We didn't know any better, and I mean I realized then a lot of my teammates that were using it, and I always believed that it wasn't going to make you dumb or anything like that. I think what I was being told or kill your brain cells, but I had control over it. I used it when I needed it. When I retired, it became a way to really escape reality a little bit. Out in the woods, it was fun to have a couple tokes, and whether that was whether we dive in and watch some TV or go on a hike in nature or go skiing or go play handball or whatever it was, it really helped as an anti-inflammatory for me. And I would take that hit and all of a sudden I would feel like, oh, okay, my body feels loose. That pain is going away and I could go out and heal my body. So it was really part of the healing process. It ended up, I moved here back to Colorado. And when I got here, I'd had one hip operated on to reattach the labrum and clean it up. And I had my other hip done not too long before I moved to Colorado. And then right then is when they, decriminalized it here. So it turned out to be good timing because it definitely helped me through that rehab process. It became, like you said, something I had to really take stock of as I was a little bit lenient and not diving into doing it all the time because there was still a perception of it being this horrible drug, but then I started realizing like how I was functioning in daily life and even as a parent and the stresses that I was under and trying to navigate what's next for me. I was in now like 35. I had one son, another child on the way. And it gave me that chance to just escape sometimes. And all of the peripheral things as an athlete and as who I am, just who I know I am and how I perceive things, I see everything. I'm like very aware of things moving over here and this person came in and if I don't have a way to focus, I'm very distracted. So I used it to be like, okay, I'm here. I'm playing Legos with my boy. I don't care about anything else. And it was really great medicine for me. It helped me drop in and take the edge off of, what we're programmed to be so reactionary. It gave me a chance to not be that and drop in. And I've come now to a different relationship with it. I very rarely even smoke marijuana anymore. I just have gotten to the point where I don't feel I want to be high in certain situations. I'd rather be present and fully alert and in the moment rather than, smoking and maybe being a little bit out there a ways. I still use it when I play handball, anti-inflammatory. Yeah, and I get like, I'm in it, man. I'm laughing, and I don't even know what the score is. I don't give a shit about winning or losing. I just am a dog at a dog park chasing a blue ball around a square room, And so I've had a good relationship with it, and I feel like it's nice to see people opening up to it as medicine. And I now, as you said, have a little bit more of a sacred relationship with it where it's medicine, it's sacred. If I do it, I give thanks to it, and I'm open to receive what it wants to bring me.
It's beautiful. I don't think there's anything better in my life than smoking a joint, getting in my body and doing yoga or rolling out or just like feeling the energy release and the inflammation just drop down into the earth. It's something that's so magical and sacred. And when I do it intentionally in that way, it's really provides so much value in my life. And I'll find myself, if I'm stressed or have a lot to do and I feel like I'm overwhelmed and I start reaching for it in those situations, it actually shows up different in my body. I feel not as focused. I feel a little more lethargic and disconnected. And it's because that intention is like, I'm overwhelmed. I go for it. It actually is so I can escape the overwhelmed feeling. But if I'm doing it to get into my body and move and feel good, and it's just a really beautiful plant in that way. I think it's really unique in that way. And I'd love to kind of go into some of these other medicines that have come online big time in my life, and I feel like they're coming online in our society and culture in a pretty big way. This psychedelic renaissance that's happening, and I'd love for you to speak to your journey with working with some sacred plant medicines, with mushrooms, your connection to them, and how that helped you on this journey of self-discovery post athletics and really rediscovering who you are through some of these modalities.
Yeah, that's it's such an amazing, really, my life and my journey is just like, wow, I'm sitting here right now. We're on this podcast sharing our stories. And now we're getting to the point of it, of like what I'm really here. I feel like part of why I'm here is to continue down this path of like you said, self-exploration, believing in we're all one, trying to raise that everybody to a higher vibration. Some days it seems like, wow, can we really do this? But then something happens to remind me like, yeah, you're doing it and it's happening. People are starting to come to this in a way where they're open to receive health or a new way to view something, or they've just been on this hitting the wall constantly and guided by a doctor or a counselor or whatever, but they're still hitting that same wall or getting to that point and never getting over it. It's been a real blessing to have opened up to meet people too, opened up to meet some dear friends. One of them I met through Charlotte's Web, Del Jolly, who is my partner with our mushroom company UMBO. I met him through Charlotte's Web, and I have to give credit to Ryan Kingsbury, who was the one who introduced me, Nate Jackson, Charlie Adams, and a handful of other former players to hemp oil and its benefits. And When the Bright Lights Fade was my first step into advocating and becoming a voice for the plants and what they were doing for the mothers of these children with Dravet syndrome, severe seizure disorder, and a lot of them with other ailments. And they were finding relief, yet they were under persecution by our government. And it was like nobody was listening to these mothers. But then when us big athletes came in with woe am I, woe is me, I'm struggling with this and that, people started to listen. And then they heard about their story. And it was like, wait a second, watching a little child in a state of seizing and then giving them the hemp oils and watching them not seize and actually their eyes brighten and they become in the moment was so powerful. Like, wow, for years we demonized this plant, and here it is changing the course of these young children's lives and these mothers. And to play a part in that was amazing. It was like such a gift to have people email me about their grandmother who is now dancing again at the Elks Club because she tried hemp oil and it took a long time to get her through that. No, that's the devil's weed and all this stuff. But she got there and now her life is better. And because of you, Jake, telling me this story on a plane ride, wow, how beautiful of a gift is that? And Dell was part of that at the tail end, but Dell is also, become one of my best friends and has introduced me and given me, the opportunity to try some other natural forms of medicine. First and foremost, my first dive into, psychedelics, other than taking some mushrooms up in the Sawtooth Mountains with my family and going on a day hike, but not taking much more than maybe a gram or even like 800 milligrams or something, just to have that sensory enhancement. But strangely enough, I remember every one of those times that I used or tried psilocybin. I can remember the exact moment, what I was doing, who was there, how it felt, how it smelled, what it sounded like. And so I'm taking stock of that now as I go into this new movement that's going on of, our senses are dulled by so many things. We're pushed into TV and food that's not good for us, and to be around and people that may not serve you well. But when you are when you take psilocybin or you open yourself up to be aware, you feel the vibration of people around you, and you understand we are all one. And when you come in here with bad energy, I feel it, and I can either react to it or I can like try to raise you up. And so Dale, he said, "Yo, man, I got a chance for you to sit with grandmother with ayahuasca," and that was my first time with an intention of going in to see what the medicine would bring to me. So since then, I've sat 6 times with grandmother. A few other doors have opened to try peyote. I've tried that twice, and I benefited all I need, because to me that's such a sacred medicine for the indigenous population on our continent here, that for me to have that gift to be one of the rainbow people, to actually see the love that provides a grandfather medicine. Truly blessed to have those 2 moments. If it comes around again, I won't say no, but I feel like it's taught me what I needed. That along with, toad once, and now psilocybin, not on a regular basis, but when I'm called to it, having some ceremony with that, it's really opened me up and shown me a lot of things that I didn't know about myself, and a lot of realizations. It's heightened my awareness of the people around me. It really has opened up my mind to how I think, and even the words I say, and the power of those 2 things that we do take for granted. And I have to say, I just recently did a breath course, conscious breathing, that took me into a state of seeing some things that going back to my childhood, traumatic experience, that just like, boom, like, wow, I did this with just my own body. Like, it's happening, there's ways to do this with your breath. If you don't want to take a plant or part of nature, I mean, but it's always good to, I believe, if you're comfortable, and you want to be that way forever, great. But if you want to go see that there's a greater purpose here, it could be something you should definitely look into.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing all that, man. And
yeah,
it's really insane that you can access these non-ordinary states of consciousness just through something like the breath. And it's not even like complicated breath. It's like basically hyperventilating, heavy breaths. And you do it for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and you're going to access a non-ordinary state of consciousness. And the importance of doing this in a facilitated, safe space is important. And, there's one thing doing mushrooms socially on a hike or with some friends, and not doing it super intentionally, which I'm sure a lot of us have done when we're younger, like you said. And, my first experience with mushrooms was my 7th year in the league. And it was, I grew up in a dogmatic evangelical Christian religion. And although I wasn't like really practicing and really turned off by the whole thing, I had this weird relationship with creation and with this idea of God and nature. And when I took mushrooms, it was this deep presence that I had never felt before. And it absolutely changed my life. And, I've gotten on my journey with some of these sacred plant medicines as well. And it's really beautiful that, they're all coming online during this time of great shift and great change and great struggle. And, a lot of things are shifting collectively in our environment, in our society, and, our financial environment, political environment, social environment. And it's as if these plants are coming online in a beautiful way to help support us. And when you start working with them, they have a consciousness to them. And it's hard to explain until you experience it, but they are incredible teachers. And they teach you about nature, about life, about consciousness, about yourself, and they are allies. And to work with all these allies is really, really a beautiful gift. I've sat with peyote a couple of times as well, and I've come to really deeply appreciate the tradition of those ceremonies, the Native American tradition and North American natives that have been doing this ceremonies and the structure and the tradition since the beginning of time, like thousands of years. And you sit around this fire, and what I love about peyote is it's very subtle medicine, but it's about the structure of the experience. It's about connecting with the fire, and you literally, the ceremonies are all night. You start at 8 or 9 p.m. and you go until the sun comes up, and they're all structured. And the one realization I had during that experience was I'm sitting around this fire in the same way that my ancestors did, or the same people drinking this medicine, eating this medicine 1,000 years ago. And it's like this insane portal that opened up of, I felt like so connected to them in time and space because of the tradition that they've kept alive. And, it's really beautiful. When I started going down on this path of working with these medicines, there was part of me that was so deep on this journey of wanting to know my purpose and wanting to have the answer. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to this that have gone on this journey of non-ordinary states of consciousness and exploring these non-ordinary states is, I wanted to know like the answer to creation. I wanted to know what God was. I wanted to know what my purpose was. And it created this subtle seeking and, trying to go to all the experiences to really find the answer. And it wasn't until I think like my 10th or 11th ayahuasca ceremony when she blasted me off into the infinite primordial void. And I realized, like, I asked the question. It was the most frightening experience of my life. And I was basically dissolved into nothing. And every thought form that I would create a whole reality. But I would start losing sense of myself. And in this void, I asked the question, like, what am I doing here? And I realized I was trying to find the answer to fill that void I talked about. When I was done playing football, that void I wanted to fill, like I wanted to know, like, how do I fill this? What is this? And in that process, I got the answer of, like, you are the answer. You are infinite potential right here, right now. And what you think about, what you put your energy into, you are creating in every moment. And from that moment on, I've had a lot more reverence for these medicines, and it is really fascinating. Like, I'm not seeking out any of them any longer. There's this interesting thing that happens when you start developing these connections and relationships with these medicines, where they will present themselves, and you'll know when it's time to work with them. And I've started to have that experience where, a synchronicity will happen, and the medicine, an opportunity to drink the medicine will present itself, and I will check in with my body. And, that's another thing with these beautiful vessels, these beautiful bodies that we have, and taking care of them. They are the communication to spirit and to God, and how the universe communicates to us is through our nervous system. And so being able to have these psychosomatic releases, like you said, through something as simple as doing a breath work, or, releasing and learning to feel your emotions, allows you to connect deeper with the somatic experience of life. And I could talk about this for a long time, but just really, really beautiful. And I'm really grateful that these medicines are really helping support us. We're really fucking up a lot as humans collectively. And I think there's no coincidence that they're so coming online in such a big way nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, right when the world was hit with the pandemic, I think a lot of people were presented with the opportunity, and myself included. Um, it's I've realized, like, in my experience, my first experience, without going too far into detail, was, I went into that a black void of nothing, and I was floating in this void, and it was euphoric. It was quiet. I had no responsibilities. I was just floating in this pure, uh, pleasurable, just like, oh my God, it felt so good. I realized that's like, my thought on it, and when I talked to some other people, was like, that was either an ego death or a representation of what happens when we die. Um, Everything went away, and I was okay. Everything was just fine. It was the rest of the world that had to go on without me that was going to have to learn to cope. And so I realized, coming out of that, I was not afraid of death anymore. And I'm not like a thrill seeker pushing death. I'm just not afraid of when that happens anymore. I'm not, because when it happens, it's done, and it's over. That's it. And I more or less realized, like, I was afraid of life. I was scared to live. I was scared to get up off my mat and go dance because I wanted to, but I thought, and I was doing that thing again. And then that ceremony helped me really be who I want to be and accept who I am, and be just fine presenting that to the world. in confidence and in respect and in integrity, but just to know like I am enough and I am who I am. And if I want to dance right now, I'm going to dance. And all you people sitting, waiting for this flight on your cell phones, sitting, being ready to sit again for 2 hours and look up at me and look crazy at me.
Is
I'm
that
thinking,
Jake Plummer dancing
yeah,
in the
maybe.
airport?
I'm like,
What
I'm
is the?
thinking back at them like,
Am I on psychedelics?
yeah, they're crazy in my mind. Like they're
Yeah.
crazy. They're just sitting there eating a burger on their phones when they're about to. So it shifted my perspective. I'm by no means through this. Life is never going to stop challenging you and presenting you with hard decisions or moments where you have to dig deep for answers or to overcome things or fight through things. There's a balance, but it definitely has helped me through some transitions I'm having even now. I mean, even in an older age, I mean, just being a parent, we our kids age and they grow older, but we never mourn them turning 12 that their 11 year is over. We just accept that they're
Mm.
12 now. And so as a parent, it's really hard. My son is 12 and he went from like, hey dad, and like this little dude to now like, hey dad. And he's like, he's a little man. And I'm like, oh, oh. And so I've been able to actually access that in some of these ceremonies where I've gone in and had a perspective shift where I'm looking at myself through his eyes and seeing who I am through his eyes and realizing like that love from from a son to a father and father to son will never go away, no matter how bad of a parent I could be or whatever I do, there's always going to be that. And so it's helped me just move through some things and understand, life will go on and however we want it to be presented and however we want to grasp it and run with it, that's up to us.
Mm.
And I'm blessed to have found the medicine. And like you said, it calls you when the time is right and you feel it and you go do it. The opportunities are out there. And I feel like, the connections we make and the heightened senses you get. And, I'm a big fan of psilocybin. If you want to get back to a reboot, to the root of who you are, I have felt like a child playing in a field of weeds and trees, and for a few hours been in a full-on giggling laughter fun fest like you see a 6 or 7 year old do without any medicine because they're just in it. Their conscious is set to freedom and life and fun. And as we grow up, all these things stack on top of one another that we have to deal with. And psilocybin is an outlet for me to go reboot to the root of like being a kid again, being a child,
Mm.
being free and laughing and watching an ant climb up a tree and just like get lost in that, the beauty of that. And the thing that it does is for me is raise my sensory inputs are out of this world where I can see further, I can smell better, the taste of things is enhanced, I can hear all around. I mean, it's like the touching, the feel, like it heightens that sense and remember and helps me remember like off of the medicine, I can still go on a walk and like put my hand down and brush some weeds and feel them touch my hand and feel the pleasure that brings. Like feel that. It's like we forget to enjoy these little things in our day-to-day lives, but being opened up by the medicine allows me to feel even like simple things and find pleasure or find comfort in them like I didn't before this.
Mm. Beautifully said. Yeah, life is a journey, not a destination. I feel like we're all trying to get somewhere, and one of the things I love what you said about like it's about developing the tools to process the shifts and impermanence of life.
Mm.
Impermanence is the gift of life, but we've never been taught how to properly grieve, how to feel, especially as men. And something as simple as your kid going from 11 years old to 12 years old, there's always transitions happening. And that's why, speaking as an athlete, going through such a massive identity shift from building up this huge ego identity and personality structure around sports, and then having to figure out who we are outside of that has definitely helped me discover these deeper parts of myself. But it's not about all of a sudden finding the answer and being healed and being good. It's about developing the tools to handle the transitions that life are constantly throwing at us. And, we can't really control the circumstances that we're presented, but we can definitely develop the tools and enhance the tools and practice the tools and show up and have these in our toolkit to really process and learn to feel and learn to navigate all of these different challenges that we may be presented. And, as we move through this collective shift that we're moving through with a lot of, seemingly real big challenges that we're facing collectively, developing these tools as an individual is really going to be one of the biggest assets that you can do for yourself as we navigate the coming years and coming decades. Because, with all the exponential growth of technology and all of the real issues and problems that we're facing, environmentally, socially, politically, financially, there's going to be a lot of unknown, and we're going to be confronted with it almost daily. And, working with these plant medicines, we realize we never really know what's around the corner. And so to develop the tools to be as present as possible, to be like a child, to be in that state of innocence so that we can find gratitude for all of it, all of the amazing, expansive, joyful experiences, and all of the just dark, intense, challenging moments, and being able to be fully present and feel those as those waves of change come through us. I mean, that's really what it means to live. And
Yes.
I would love to, I'd love to hear more about, finding this purpose. You spoke to being really passionate about speaking and advocating for these beautiful, natural medicines that have been around for a long time and just now coming online. Talk a little bit about your journey into entrepreneurship, founding this company, UMBO, and kind of how that came together and your guys' purpose and passion and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, thank you, man, and well said on just the challenges we face, and hopefully everybody has a place in nature or somewhere where they can go to escape for a second and feel the grass or lean on a tree or sit by a creek, because I feel like that's the therapy I need now more than sitting with a therapist. It's sometimes that stillness and becoming the water that's going by you and feeling it inside you, and like trying to just remember that we all are so connected. That's what the medicine really has done, is it's opened me up to connections like I never had before. Playing in the league, escaping from Denver to Sandpoint, meeting people and always questioning sometimes what their motives were for being my friend, or meeting somebody and they're like, yeah, hey, what's up? And then they come back around 20 minutes later and they're like, yo, man, I didn't know you were Jake Plummer, man. Like, what's up, dude? And I'm like, hold on a second. You treated me like some bum and now you want to be like cool with me. And so it was hard to make connections. And I really I just became kind of a hermit, where I'd meet somebody and I would maybe want to pursue it, but I didn't even know how. And these ceremonies have brought me so close to so many other humans as you sit and you are exposed and you can feel the people around you and you can feel their pain, and we share what we went through and you can relate, and we're all humans and we're all just trying to do better. We're trying to get better. We're trying to live better. We're trying to just love better. And, I've made so many amazing connections since I've opened myself up to medicines, and I'm so grateful for it. And, one of those is Dale Jolly, who, like I mentioned earlier, met Charlotte's Web. He's really been on the front end of this renaissance for responsibly researching psychedelics. He formed the nonprofit Unlimited Sciences that helped get the first decrim movement done for psilocybin here in Denver. And since then, it's been his pursuit to, responsibly present this to people. And so he helped present not only ayahuasca and then psilocybin and some other things, but he also gave me some functional mushrooms, some tinctures right before the pandemic. In fact, that's when I met Rashad Evans, who was our third founder and partner in UMBO, and felt his amazing vibration and wow, who is this human being I'm sitting by? Not only is he one of the baddest dudes in the world, his energy, I'm feeling felt so comfortable around him. I wanted to just lean against him and put my head on his shoulder. And like, he was that kind of a presence. And so Dale introduced me to that, and we started going foraging, and I felt the benefits from those functional mushrooms. And we decided to, while this is becoming a little way more well known, and people are knocking down their fears or their past beliefs in what mushrooms are, and actually realizing there's more than just one mushroom in the world, psilocybin, magic mushrooms. There's a whole entire, I call it a queendom, because to say kingdom means a whole different thing, but a queendom to me is like the mother of creation, the mother of all things, and mycelium that's under the ground. And if you dive into the research behind fungi and what they have done already for the world and what they're about to do and what we will step into as we're doing right now, it's really a fascinating journey to be on, and realizing really what my true purpose now is to just walk and live and be open to meet people, to share my story, to not only be weak and cry and broken down, but to build myself back up and be able to own that. And not everything is perfect now that I've come to the medicine. It's not like life is easy now. It's constantly challenging me. There's stress everywhere you go. There's moments that could cause anxiety, but my awareness of those moments and my ability to just drop into them and not let them take control of me, I feel like we're just tapping our real human potential, which is to optimally live, to thrive. We all have a superpower of some kind inside of us. I tapped into mine to play in the league. So did you. Why do we have to let that be our only great superpower moment? Like, what's my next superpower moment? When I had turned 90 to have my party at a trampoline park, people laugh. Well, you're not going to want to be 90, man. You're going to be all beat up and CTE and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, take that back. You don't say that. You don't have a right to tell me what I'm going to be when I'm 90. I believe this. And so this journey now into UMBO and presenting functional mushrooms and a way of living that's a little bit different and not your status quo is really, it's really my path. Mushrooms aren't just the only answer. It's not like that's going to change your life and everything's good. I'm still going to drink beer and watch shitty TV and speak in bad words and eat shitty. No, it makes you aware of how you feel. And you just, once you go there, you can't go back. Occasionally I'll eat pizza, but I don't do it all the time because it doesn't make me feel good the next day. I stopped drinking alcohol, not completely. I'm not going to turn down a nice glass of red wine with some pasta. I mean, I love to savor and enjoy the finer things in life. I just don't do it all the time because of how it makes me feel. I want to optimally function day to day. So I choose most times, better ways, better habits, better sleep. But yoga is something I truly believe in. I thought it was more for my body back in the day, but now I realize that it's more than anything. It's for my mind, my spirit, to go internal. And you said smoking and doing yoga. I mean, when I do that, there's something that always, like, I'll be laying in savasana or doing at some point, and it's like, here it is. And it's like this answer just comes falling out of the cosmos into my brain. And it's like, I'll be in tears sometimes because of the realizations I'm having on my yoga mat. And there's just the deal getting into UMBO now and trying to, I don't want to be a false prophet. I mean, a lot of people out there will get behind something and they'll make money on it and they won't be living up to the standards they're talking about. And I learned a lot of this through a former teammate that everyone listening to your podcast probably knows about, is Pat Tillman. And Pat was a an amazing human with high integrity, very authentic, genuine, and he practiced what he preached and he walked the walk. And so for years I didn't, but I was still a voice for him. So I stopped being a voice for him because out of respect for who he was, I want to be myself and eventually will be a voice for him by just my actions alone and carrying on my life. But it's about, being about it. And so getting into mushrooms and being into yoga and kind of being a voice for this movement. I can't be sitting watching, binge watching Game of Thrones and eating shitty food all day and then lying about how good I feel, because I know I wouldn't feel that good. So experientially, I'm trying to live the best I can live and live optimally to where my path is taking me. And the more I open up to that, Joe, it's crazy. And the more people come into the picture, Dell with our formulation of UMBO, it comes across a friend who bought a piece of property out in Fort Lupton out here in Colorado, and it had a mushroom farm on it. And he said, "Hey, you wanted to grow mushrooms, here's your chance." So I went out, started growing mushrooms. And right at that moment, I met a kid named Leo, who is a magical human that was wanting to grow mushrooms. And so we started growing them together. And then a couple people came into the fold that were also in growing mushrooms and extracting them. And we formed another company called MycoLove Farms, where we grow mushrooms and we extract them and try to supply the best, highest potent, like quality made, organically made, with the intention to heal, extract of mushrooms on the market. And so there's just all these things have come to me and blessed me now that I've opened to just receive them and let my path go where it goes. I don't have long-term goals or a daily thing. I just things come my way, and it's just all I can say is, like you mentioned earlier, is I'm letting them guide me. I'm letting the medicine open me up to be guided and not make a big deal about everything you come across, but tap back into our intuition and these beautiful vessels we live in that are not meant to suffer as much as we suffer, and they're meant to optimally function if we take care of them. And that's my challenge, is to continue to take care of my body, my mind, my spirit, and then to share that story through UMBO and whoever else wants to go out there with me and shake up the status quo and try to not live the narrative of, oh, this is what you got to deal with now that you retired from the NFL. This is what you're going to be dealing with down the road. Like, no, let's find out if we can reverse some of that damage. Let's see if we can do something for our longevity. Let's do a lot of breath work and positive thought to living as long as we possibly can, as healthy as we possibly can, while we eat well, we think well, and we act in right relations, and take the medicine and use it to our benefit.
Oh, brother, man. I'm super grateful for you, dude. It's synchronicities and magic is happening every day in my life. And I know you're experiencing it as well. There's all these old ways of holding on tightly to what we think we want. And when we learn to let go and allow and to listen, I mean, I literally am experiencing magic every day. Like the stuff you're talking about, like the right person will come into my life when I was like, I need to meet somebody that's got this connection, and it's just all happening for me. And yes, there's times when I get stuck in my mind, when I get stuck in the feelings of overwhelm and stress and worried about, money or if this thing's going to work, or am I doing the right thing, or getting to, a spat with my relationship, which is always an opportunity to deeply grow and learn about myself. It's not saying there's no bypassing of all these challenges. It's about learning to listen, let go, and follow the flow of energy in your life. And I'm really grateful that the flow of energy has brought us together. I'm super grateful to be on this journey with you, brother. And I am really just want to honor you and say how proud I am of you, of somebody who has had such a successful career in football, someone that I looked up to when I was younger. And to see you showing up and being a voice for these medicines and for this new way of being and sharing and being vulnerable with your story and who you are and just the people that you're impacting. I'm just super grateful for you, brother, and anything I can do to support you, I'm here.
Well, thank you, Joe, man. It's great. When I read your story, man, I was like, all right. And Dale ended up connecting us. Dale again comes into my life.
Shout out Del Jolly. Unlimited Sciences.
And he's introduced me to so many other phenomenal humans like yourself that are helping people. And we really have a chance to help our brethren from the NFL and from our playing days that I know you've probably been around some of them and you see them just kind of living in that same repetitive cycle. And I hate hearing the news of, you know, a 45-year-old or 54-year-old or, you know, passing when maybe there's something we could do. And that's the hardest thing is like, we have to slow down in order to speed up. And I've realized that, but we have to get the word out too, so people, you know, can see how we're doing and that we're struggling at times too, but we have the tools. We have the tools in our toolbox. Our awareness is open to understand, like, hey, it's time for me to like leave this situation, not stay there and make it worse, but like time for me to get out of here for a little bit and have the strength and fortitude to stand by that decision. And so, yeah, man, you're doing great stuff too, and working with a lot of people to change their lives and present them with the tools they need to possibly optimize and live a better quality of life. So much more power to you. And definitely if I can help in any way, always here. And I'm looking forward to, like, you know, the long life we have ahead of ourselves to grow and cross our paths in fun ways.
Awesome. Beautiful, brother. Yeah. I just want to say, if you're a former athlete and you are struggling and need to connect and are interested in doing some of these more holistic healing modalities, or are interested in going on this journey and you found your way to this podcast, definitely reach out to myself. I know Jake is available as well. And we will, you know, if we can't find support for you, we'll point you in the right direction. That's for sure. We definitely want to support and take care of our brothers, because it is not an easy journey. Letting all that go, and it's hard to ask for help. So you can definitely reach out to us. Where can people find you, Jake, if they want to connect with you, find out more about UMBO and all the other projects you're working on?
Yeah, you can, start with UMBO. GetUMBO.com is our website. There's some very informative blogs on there. Our products are top notch. If you want to connect with me, I'm on Twitter at Snakes Takes. So snakes plural and then takes. And then on Instagram at Snake Plummer. And then, reach out through whatever way possible. If you're feeling called to this, or if you're just like, I'm kind of tired of how I feel, I want to feel better. And, we love it. I know you do too. You help a lot of guys, and I love to present another option that maybe your doctor doesn't tell you about, or your pastor, or your family may look at you and scorn you for trying some of these things. But, when you're called to something, stand strong and go with it. Like some of these other high profile athletes that have done it themselves, that have had to reinvent themselves sort of towards the end of their career and middle of their life. And, we're here for you to support it in any way possible. Thank you, Joe, for the chance to share the story. And, if anybody goes to getumbo.com, Joe, we talked about it, but a code Beyond 15 can be a code to try some of the product, get a little discount if you want to. This is in no way a plug for my company at all. I'm less brand driven and more cause driven than anything else right now, because like I said, I hate hearing about guys that are struggling. And when we lose a brother, it's hard. It's like, damn, could I have done something? How come no one told me? And why didn't someone tell me that he was struggling? And a lot of times it's just finding somebody you can feel comfortable around to share what you're going through. And we're here for any of you out there listening, for sure.
Beautiful. We all just want to be seen and heard at the core of it. And that's really, it's really a lot more simple than we think. Really appreciate you, Jake. I appreciate the discount. Go to getumbo.com, and then at checkout, Beyond 15, get a little discount. All of that stuff will be in the show notes. Really appreciate everybody listening. Deeply grateful for you. And as this podcast continues to grow, would really appreciate if you feel called to share it with somebody close to you that you think it might impact. That would be huge. And love y'all. Peace.
Yeah, much love.